their sites thinking, or they should, right? Yeah. If you're going to win a case. And so, like, how you're going to get beat. Like, I know how we're going to get beat. Like, this is whatever. But you also have 35 times that year times 31 years of coaching. Like, that's what for this to happen, these things right here have to be in play or whatever. So you try to prevent those. And so then, like, you just take inventory. Like, anytime, like, we've ever struggled or things have ever happened, I always believe you've got to take inventory of yourself before you take inventory on other people. Like, the people that are under you. And so, like, that's simply what I do. Like, how can I get myself better before I try to get our program better? Which, if I can improve myself, I am going to improve our program. So that's I just wrote. I just wrote for 4 straight hours, and then I got there, and then we talked to our guys. At that time, they don't need to hear that. They need to hear of the accomplishments. They need to hear that in 2 years we've had the most wins in the history of Purdue basketball. They need to hear that they won the Big Ten tournament, that they won the league by 3 games, that they're the only undefeated non-conference, only team to be undefeated in non-conference back-to-back seasons in the country. If you're bad in the or you've struggled in the NCAA tournament, which the year before we went to Sweet 16, but the people you get beat by, like it's like when you look at those, like, we can't score 60 points against St. Peter's. We can't score 60 points against Farley Dickinson. But yet you got the number 1 efficient offense versus the top 100 in the country. Well, if you have that, then why in the hell can't you do that? And so that's frustrating as a coach. But you can't, you can't look past your own nose. Like, and the thing that I've always tried to do, and it's probably the hardest route, but the best route, you got to face it. You got to face it. Like, don't run from something. Like, face it, take it on, and that's how you're going to hopefully reverse that scenario where you're going to be better in March.
What were you writing? When you're writing, what are you writing?
Everything that comes to your mind, because it's such
about the game, about life. What do you do?
Everything about a program, about what you can do for, like, I start off by just writing the thoughts. It's no different if, like, you have a subject or you have a topic and you want to write like a thesis or a paper. Like, you just write all your thoughts, then you work from there. It just allows me to work from there. Then I write each individual guy and just, like, things that they've done well, things they need to improve on. I get to a staff, like with your staff, everybody on your staff, like going from there, yourself, and you just keep writing anything that comes to your mind. Now, sometimes you go back and you read it and you're like, what the hell is it?
Aftermath.
But you don't want to lose it, right? Like, we've all done that. We've all had a thought and we lose the thought, and I do that with my notes. So, like, anytime from practice, I have it, and so, like, on my phone, like, I just keep a list of things. Then I go back and reread things 2-3 weeks later, and then bring it together or erase things or conform it. I do it with lists too. So, like, on whatever I have to do, I got my basketball, I got my personal stuff, I got my house or lake house type stuff. I got those things that you have to do. If I don't write it down, I don't feel like I'd get to it. If I write it down and I don't get to it, I have that guilt. Like, yeah, man, knock your list down. Then I always make my one list into another list. I know it sounds crazy, but that's how I operate.
And the last question, what'd you write about yourself?
Huh?
What'd you write about yourself in this phrase?
How in the hell can you let your team get beat and not be able to score 60 points? Like, how can't you? Because I think what we do from an execution standpoint and a schematic standpoint, we've really worked at. Like, if you want to take something away, we have the counters to. Like, I like to think everything, but some days I feel that, and some days you don't, right? But yeah, that's what I really. Because if we don't foul, both those teams that beat us are going to be in the 50s. So don't act like that's not a good number to be around 55, 58. Like, you got to be able to score. Like, the only time we went to the Elite Eight, we scored 99 points to go to the Elite Eight. Like, you got to score the basketball. But, like, sometimes you have teams that just aren't that good at scoring, that you got to grind it out, be better on defense, be better in there. But if you're the number 1 efficient offense in the country, like, why is that your issue at that time? So sometimes you answer your questions with other questions, which is perplexing. You walk away like the Riddler. Yeah.
What did you do with all that stuff?
And then you wonder why, like why am I coaching? Like, you get that question. So, like, why am I doing this to myself? But go ahead. I'm sorry, Brian.
What did you do with all that stuff you wrote? You got it in a shoebox somewhere? Do you carry it on you?
I keep it, yeah. Just put it in a file, date it, have it there.
Do you go back and revisit it after practices?
Sometimes. It just depends.
How do you get
But I
your
normally get to where I meet with each individual person, and I meet with my staff, and I meet with here's where we are. How can we help ourselves? Because what a lot of people will do is I'm not going to change things that have been great for us. You know, you're not going to convince me that I stole my own car. It is not going to happen. Sorry. But I also let them know, because a lot of us have noise, whether it's myself or our players, you have to understand this. First of all, some of the things they say about us are true. I said that earlier. Be able to take it, be able to take some criticism. But the other thing is, I told our team this, I said, successful people don't criticize other successful people when they fail in social media. It's not the way it is. You guys write what happens and you give your opinion, but you also watch what happens. You also watch other programs. You also have your own data that you've collected through 10, 20, 30, 40 years of covering people. So there's a baseline to what you're doing. So, yeah, Mike, the 40 was you. Okay. John was more 15. Myron was 25. Okay. All right. Noob, you're 25. But for their sake, just for their sake, just make sure you understand that. But don't take in the positives from social media. All right. And then you can ignore the negatives. But if you take in the positives, you're going to take in the negatives too. It's an old saying about, if you live and die by every shot, you're going to be dead a lot. If you take a good shot and miss it, what are you mad about? You missed a good shot. What you have to do as a coach when it comes to shot selection is you got to be able to critique when someone takes a bad shot and it goes in. So, and it's no different than you can make great decisions and get a bad result. And that's hard for a fan. That's hard for people that follow. But if you're playing blackjack or you're playing poker, and you're at 78%, 22%, and 22% in back-to-back hands is a negative for you, you're still going to bet to the 78% and feel good about it. So, now, as a coach, how do you quantify that? Because there's a lot of variables, right? So there's a lot of differences there. So that's what you got to just kind of feel is what's your staples? What do you believe in? What do you stay with? What changes with personnel? But you can't turn the basketball over. If you want to get down to a nutshell, don't turn the basketball over. So, and it's different, right? Is it West Virginia's scheme and pressing you, turning you over? Is it somebody's doubling the post or blitzing ball screens that's turning you over? Or is it the tennis unforced errors? And ours was unforced errors. So I always say, let Michigan State or Michigan beat you. Not really, but in theory, this is an example. But when Purdue beats Purdue, we got to look in the mirror.
And yet, you're far from the only Big Ten team that has had recent struggles in the Big Ten or in the NCAA tournament. Any theories on what's been happening in the last 3 years?
Not really. I mean, I can only give you what we've gone through, which we just obviously did. Because I know this: once you lose, you put your head in the sand for a little bit. I'm not a real good person to talk to about the 2023 NCAA tournament because I didn't watch any of it. yeah. And so you're just on a constant spin to try to improve yourself and try to get yourself there.
Is there anything to the idea that the conference is just so rugged that by the time NCAA?
No, it's not football. Yeah, if it's football, I'd agree with it. But I think for the league, we have great coaches, we have great players. But yeah, there's when you look at the Big East, they've won national championship 3 out of 6 years. Villanova has 2 of those. Obviously, UConn just won it. I have a tough time answering it because we haven't done our part, right? If I theorize about something, I can only really theorize about we haven't done our part. And we've been a team that's put ourselves in some really good positions, especially the last 2 years. We had good paths. And that's not a knock on anybody, but sometimes you just got to match up somewhere in your path. You're boy, I don't know about how we would go against that. Sometimes it's that matchup, right? You're man, this is going to be a tough matchup. I don't think we were in that position in the last couple of years. The team we got beat by in the Sweet 16, they went on to lose to a team that we already beat on a neutral court that year. So when you look at that, then you look at our path after that, really good, tough, hard-nosed defensive teams, good teams, right? But I definitely think that we could have had success against those teams. So, I can't really sit there and give a holistic answer to it when we haven't done what we're capable of doing. We haven't played as well as we should have. And then, we're in position in 4 years ago to go to the Final Four. Tough play, which a lot of people don't realize. Under a minute in overtime, we actually have a lead in that game. They make a couple key plays. They make a shot, we miss a shot, and they make the next one, and that was it. But we also, I thought, did a really good job of, executing and playing. We had something just go against us, right?
With an older, more mature, arguably better team, do you feel like your team's pretty well composed this year to handle whatever burden might kind of come with all this?
Yeah, and I also think that, we have more depth than, at the guard position. Right now, I really think we have a couple guys that have stood out in our backcourt. We have a lot of guys that are very similar, but we have more athleticism and we have more quickness than we did last year. But, we still had a team where if our decision-making's okay, we would still be playing.
How hard it is to stay on top, especially in a conference like this. But if you're on the bottom, just how do you ascend in this conference with so much depth and so much depth?
Right. I've gotten last in this league twice. The first one wasn't my fault, and the second one was. It's obviously humbling, when you have success. So we got last place. We went to 6 straight NCAA tournaments. We did not go to the tournament for 2 years, and one of those years we got last, and now we've been 8 straight years to the NCAA tournament. Basketball's a little bit different. If you can get 2 people and you can anchor around 2 people, now if you can get good guys from role definition and role players with them, you can make some moves. But you got to you're not going to navigate in this league without at least 2 all-conference caliber players. You're just not. There's just no way. But it's also the beauty of playing well together. So if you have a system like that, the whole kind of exceeds the parts, right? I think that's how you make your move. But you got to have a start. So when I took over at Purdue, we got last place my first year, but we had 2 players that were sitting out that tore their ACL, and Carl Landry and David Teague. That was our start. You got to have a start somewhere, where that light at the end of the tunnel is, a ray of hope, not a train, right? You always think it's a train. But I think if you never get that start with some personnel, no matter what your scheme is, it's going to be really hard. And now I think it's going to be harder, right? How they put that schedule together. Yeah.
Although I suppose that could help you too.
Right. You could be on the other end of that. But if you're making strides and now you're going to hit it, and now you're going to get to the tournament, and your travel's different, your schedule's a little harder, because 40 years ago, no one said, hey, what about your strength of schedule in conference? What the hell is that? Now it is something, right? That is a player in a league like ours, but it's really going to be a player in our league after this year.
Last question I have is just your impressions on